Hello everyone, my name is Loco and welcome to another StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void video. In this video, I'm gonna be going over a Zerg vs Zerg build order for the current meta in Legacy of the Void. Currently, in most of Legacy of the Void, we see a lot of Zergling Baneling aggression, and this build order focuses on that as well. However, we're gonna be getting a very quick +1 melee attack upgrade. You can be using this build as well in Heart of the Swarm, so if you're playing that, honestly, Zerg vs Zerg meta right now in both Legacy of the Void and Heart of the Swarm is very similar. However, in Heart of the Swarm, there are certain ways to transition towards the mid-game and roaches safely, where there currently, with the map pool that is out there in Legacy of the Void right now, there currently isn't really a way to do so yet. So what we're going to be focusing on is standard Ling Baneling style. However, we're going to be getting +1 attack very early on. Do obviously want to go for the hatchery first right here. If you notice that you're getting cheesed a lot, you can be swapping around the timing of the hatchery and the spawning pool as well. But I'm going to go here with a 17 hatchery right there. And I'm going to be following this up with a spawning pool and a gas geyser as well very early on. So there we go. We see the gas geyser go up, and very shortly I will be getting the spawning pool as well. Now oftentimes I see people ask, does it matter if I go 17 pool or 18 pool or 14 pool? Honestly, for the most part, just get the hatchery, then the gas geyser, and then the spawning pool. Don't obsess over the little nitty-gritty details. For most of the time in Legacy of the Void, it really doesn't matter too much until the meta settles down very strictly and we will see very standard timings pop up. But I went for the hatchery, then the gas geyser, then the spawning pool. You want to be putting 3 drones into the gas geyser immediately, and obviously you want to be doing some scouting around with your overlords to figure out what strategy your opponent is going for. 90% of the time you will see something very similar. Now obviously by going for the hatchery first, I basically say to my opponent, you know, if you're gonna go for any kind of super early pooling, I likely lose the game. So if you notice that, you know, you're getting cheesed a lot, definitely go for the spawning pool first, and then the hatchery, and then the gas geyser. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be spending my first 100 gas on Zergling speed. Then I'm going to be getting a Baneling nest relatively shortly after as well. And very early on, I will also be getting the +1 attack. So I'm going to go for the double queens right here. Double queens, very, very standard, obviously. Also want to be getting a set of scouting Zerglings to see exactly what's going on. So thus far, it's very, very similar. Now, the reason why we get +1 attack is, first off, it will make run-bys extremely powerful. Second off, any kind of like super obvious Ling Baneling fights oftentimes will actually result in Zerglings versus Zerglings after all of the Banelings have been cleaned up. And what I've noticed a lot is that a lot of players will look at the Zergling fight and be like, okay, that's like 15 Zerglings versus 15 Zerglings. I will actually, you know, be coming out of that fight relatively even. However, with +1 attack, that fight will go significantly, and I mean significantly, in favor of the player that is actually having +1 attack. So there you can see, I went for the spawning pool, got that one a little bit later. Honestly, I should have gotten that probably like 20-30 gas earlier. No big deal, however. But I'm going to be following that up immediately with a evolution chamber as well. And we put down the evolution chamber usually when you have right around 70 gas or so available, which will mean that you have gas to morph in Banelings. Which is why I'm currently making 2 Zerglings right there. I'm going to be positioning those right there. I have the gas geyser available, or the gas amount available, to morph those into Banelings immediately. And I'm going to be getting the +1 melee attack right as the evolution chamber finishes. So far, it's been a hatchery first, followed into a gas geyser, followed into a spawning pool. Then I got Zergling speed after getting the double queens. Got the Baneling nest going up, and very shortly after, at 70 gas, I got the evolution chamber, as well as a set of Zerglings that I'm going to be positioning right here. I don't have those hotkeyed, and I can be morphing those into Banelings, and I pretty much every single time do so in order to defend pretty much any kind of early aggression that my opponent throws at me. Now, please note that we are going to be flooding minerals for at least a little bit right here. We did just pop off and inject right there, and we did just create a couple drones. What you can actually spend these minerals on as well is a quick third base. But if you notice that your opponent is playing a little more aggressive, you may want to consider going for a third queen and a spine crawler, for example, instead. So that's something you're going to have to figure out yourself. There's no, 100%, set way of doing this. But in general, this is the way to do it. So we get the evolution chamber almost immediately after we get this Baneling nest going as well. So I'm going to be scouting around right now with the Zerglings that I got, trying and figure out exactly what I want to be going for. And in this specific scenario, I have seen that my opponent played very standard as well. I do even see the spine crawler right here. So I'm going to be following this up with a very quick third hatchery. And the reason for the third hatchery is to potentially transition out of it, also to get some extra larva production going, but most importantly, to force my opponent to do something. Like he obviously doesn't want me to get mining from that third base, so seeing that he obviously does have vision of that, at least I assume so, yeah, he does have an overlord very close by, so he'll likely figure this out very shortly. He will have to respond to exactly what's going on. Now that I actually did finish up my Baneling Nest, and now that I've got a couple Banelings coming in, and now that I've started up +1 melee attacks right here in the Evolution Chamber, I'm very shortly gonna start non-stop Zergling production right now. So you gotta keep in mind, a lot of Zerglings, or a lot of Zergling Baneling fights are determined by the Baneling hits. I gotta assume right here that you're reasonable at microing these kind of fights, and there's no magic right there other than just simply practicing this for hundreds and hundreds of games, and at some point you'll be reasonable at it, and you will come better and better. Now, or you'll become better and better rather. Now, as it is right now, I got +1 attack still coming in. And I know that this is a relatively expensive upgrade in Zerg vs Zerg, so I want to try and avoid any kind of fighting until that upgrade finishes. Oftentimes what I've noticed is that players do not expect you to get that +1 attack finishing up, and when you do, you can actually do a crazy amount of damage. Now obviously I still want to sort of treat this as standard Link Baneling fights, and I still am gonna have to micro my ass off and not lose my Banelings for absolutely nothing. Obviously have to make sure that I manually control my Banelings and, you know, not run my Zerglings into his Banelings, but I'm basically just trying to buy time right here for the +1 attack to finish off, and I'm splitting off my Zerglings to the best of my abilities right now, trying to pick off the Banelings that he's got, and I'm trying to, you know, make sure that I don't lose all of my stuff. Still making non-stop Zerglings right now, still trying to hit my Queen Injects, still making sure that I'm not losing all of my stuff, and, you know, just producing non-stop army right now to wait for that +1 attack. So far, it's been very standard, very normal, but you will see once the +1 attack kicks in, it will go significantly in my favor. Now, my opponent has been teching up pretty greedily as well. Instead of going for a third base, he's decided to drone up and, or to tech up instead. That's a very common response as well. Now, this build actually coincidentally counters any kind of Mutalisk play, because, you know, Zerglings actually counter Mutalisk, because this Mutalisk simply cannot actually kill them fast enough. But on top of that, it also counters the standard Roach transition, especially in the current map pool. There's just not very much of a way they can deal with that. So in this specific game, I noticed, okay, the third base isn't down yet. I know he's likely teched up at this point. What I'm gonna do is start fighting. Obviously, I don't have +1 armor, so I still have to make sure that I counter these Banelings efficiently. But coincidentally, what also happens is that the Banelings die significantly faster with +1 attack. Gonna be running in right here, and you will notice very quickly that my Zerglings are significantly stronger than his, right? I'm gonna be running them in right here, try and do damage, and my opponent is like, damn. I guess, yeah, too greedy for Mutalisk. But honestly, even if he would have transitioned to Roaches, even if he would have transitioned towards like a more standard mid-game like that, he would have still gone down right here to the massive amounts of Zerglings. Now, I've been playing this a lot, and it's extremely potent. Like I mentioned, oftentimes you will see a player try transitioning towards the third base, which you can't pick off with these Zerglings. Oftentimes you see a transition towards, well, I guess the Spire's right here, somewhere, yeah, it was right there. You will be able to pick that off as well. Oftentimes you will find someone transitioning towards Roaches and go for a bit of a Ravager timing attack. The +1 attack will make it much easier to pick off Zerglings as well, as long as you get this around on all of the units. So very nice build order to be executing. I would highly recommend at the very least giving it a try. Obviously, you're gonna have to go for some crazy micro, especially versus Links and Banelings. But, you know, that's just something you'll have to learn the hard way anyway. Now, the reasoning why we go for the +1 melee rather than the +1 armor, because that's the most common question, is for the fact that Zergling run-bys become extremely possible, also later on into the game. But on top of that, it makes it much easier to kill his Banelings as well. Technically speaking, +1 armor makes your Zerglings survive one Baneling hit, but they put them at such low health that oftentimes it isn't really worth it. If you're microing well, the +1 attack should actually give you more benefit. Now, if you don't feel too comfortable in your Zergling Baneling micro, you can be going for a little bit of a later Evolution Chamber as well. Go for the Carapace upgrade, and instead of going for the third base, transition a little bit faster to a third Queen, Spinecrawler, and a Roach Warren, because obviously the +1 armor will also carry over towards the Roaches, while the +1 attack does not. I've been messing around with both. I've been messing around with both melee upgrades as well as Carapace upgrades, and I gotta say, I actually do enjoy the melee upgrades better, because you have so many more things to transition into. Now, with the +1 melee, I would recommend, if you don't do enough damage right here, I would recommend transitioning towards a lair, getting the extra gases going, and go for a Spire, because that's honestly a little bit stronger right now in Zerg vs Zerg. And if you notice that your opponent is going Mutas himself as well, you can obviously just stick around on the Mute attack and keep using the Zerglings for run-bys. And you can actually eventually transition towards Ultralisk as well in the late game. But if your opponent is going for the Roach transition, what you can do is try and contain him with the Mutalisk, keep attacking with the Banelings and the Zerglings, but in the meantime, drone up the third base completely and transition towards +1 attack in the Evo chamber for roaches instead, and get your roach warren started. But that goes a little bit further than I really wanted to be discussing in this video. Long story short, you want to be going for the hatchery first, follow it up with a gas geyser, follow it up with a spawning pool, or like I mentioned, if you see a lot of cheese, you may want to swap around a couple of these timings. Go for the double queen. At 100 gas, put down the spawning pool. At 50 gas, put down the baling nest, as well as a set of safety zerglings in the main base that you will be morphing into banelings potentially. Then at 70 gas, start up the evolution chamber, morph into 2 safety banelings, start up the melee attack upgrades, squeeze out a couple drones for the natural, decide whether or not you want to go for an extra spine crawler and a queen, or for a third base instead, and start making massive amounts of zerglings, crossing your fingers and waiting for the +1 attack to finish up. Let me know what you think of these type of videos down below the like button in the video, or in the comment section rather of this video, because I can be making tons more of these. They're really fun to do, especially when I figure out some new cool strategies. I've been messing around a lot with Nidus as well, and Zerg vs Terran and Zerg vs Protoss. So would you like me to cover those as well? Let me know down below. But other than that, I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next one.